Well, hello and welcome to the Generations Podcast. This is a ministry at Pleasant Ridge Baptist Church. I'm your host, Robert Banks. Pull up a seat, join us at the table. If you've been following along with us in this ministry, we've covered a lot of exciting topics, and tonight I think is going to be one of the best because we're going to look into a crisis in America, and especially in the church. And it's not just, as we talked about last time, as the armor, but this time we're going to talk about the crisis of masculinity and the absence of leadership, not just in our homes, but in our churches and in our communities. So that said, let's introduce our panel. Give us your name, your season in life, and one word that describes how you're feeling coming into this topic.
Hi, my name's Grady Gomillion. I am in my late 20s now. That sounds weird to say. I feel like I'm still a teenager. But no, I'm currently young in the professional career. I'm a band director, high school band director. Still fairly early on in my marriage. We've been married for 3 years now. Been together for a total of 6. But no, I'm excited.
All right, excited.
Jeremy Fretwell. I am in my mid-40s. We have 5 children, so my wife and I have been married 20 years this year. So I would say we're about midway through things. I'm feeling slightly anxious and wet tonight, so yeah.
All right, thanks for that.
Perfect. My name's Rafael Malega. I am, I'm not going to say my age, but you can just look at the gray hair and kind of see where I am and the season of life that I'm dealing with. Had a great visit, just to give you a little hint, I had a great visit this afternoon with my granddaughter who's 5.5, and she just was just a ton of fun this afternoon, showing me some of her new cheers. And so that's what really my life is about right now, is her and just worshiping the Lord and trying to hang out with these guys and doing life with these guys. So been married to my wife coming up on about 28 years now, and it's pretty a neat season. Semi-retired, and just looking forward to the evening and discussing biblical manhood. So I'm encouraged.
Hi, my name is James Schultz. I'm in my mid-30s. I've been married to my wife for about 7 years now. I have young children at home. Best word to describe right now is I'm pretty tired all the time.
That's perfect.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you guys for being here. Looking forward to this conversation. As I said at the beginning, we're going to talk about the crisis of masculinity in America today and how it's seeped into various areas of our culture and society. This will be a 2-part episode. Part 1, we're going to focus on the problem. Part 2, we're going to address the solution. So here in part 1, we've talked about, as I said, this crisis of masculinity in America. And I want to begin by asking you guys, what messages about manhood have shaped you the most in your life? So we have some younger guys, we have some middle-aged, older men. What messages about manhood have shaped you? What did you find when you were younger? What do you find now in the society? What have you grown up believing a man is supposed to be and a man is supposed to do? Let's start with James. We'll kind of start younger and work our way around. Get Grady and James' opinion first, and then we'll get us going. So what do you think about that, James?
Growing up, I always saw being a man as you were the anchor. You always had to be level-headed. You couldn't let your emotions take hold of you. You had to think very carefully how you made your decisions because your decisions affect everyone around you. And being a man, your decisions can have greater weight than others.
Okay. Excellent. Great. Any thoughts on that? The messages about manhood as you're becoming a man, as you said, still recently kind of newly married and career and things like that?
I would say from whenever I was growing up and even now, because I work with high school age students every single day, probably the biggest thing that I hear about what everyone else around me believes a man should be is, and I don't think it's true at all, but a man shouldn't cry. Like, that is a form of weakness. That is a sign of weakness. If you are someone who gets overly emotional and you show compassion towards people, if you are loving towards someone, something like that is weakness, and you are not supposed to show that. Men should not be emotional people at all. You know, there's the old thing that I've always been told and heard of, like, oh, you're feeling that way? Shut up. No one cares.
So did you get that mostly from culture or
Culture.
culture?
Culture.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Jeremy, how would you add to that in terms of being a little bit older, a little more established, but still kind of in between? What have you learned from culture and church and from parents? What was modeled for you, and how have you grown into biblical masculinity?
Yeah, so my parents were very young. Both were 17, 18 years old when I was born. They, kind of got into a quick marriage. Hey, let's try to make this work. And unfortunately, it didn't. My brother came along 18 months after me. And so I am from the land of divorced people. So that brings in a different perspective. Yeah, my family is also very young, right? So my parents were empty nesters before they hit 40 years old. So it's just my father was very young, was a hard worker, but there were lots of children. He had 8 brothers and sisters, or there were 8 of them, so 7, and so that necessarily made for a different dynamic. One thing that always resonates in my head when you say biblical masculinity. I just can't help but hear Vodi Bakum, in his famous, society assumes that men are the bedroom, the ball field, and the billfold. That is such a powerful statement, because the first thing that you do as a man, I don't know about you, Raph, but my, for me, in the first couple of minutes, I need to know what you do for a living. Why do I need to know that? I should probably know something else about you before then, but that's just what American society...
Isn't that what's been trained into us, though, that your identity is based upon what you do for a living, or your status in terms of being a husband or a father?
Yeah. Most of your value is wrapped up in that, right? And I think the implied thought there is, okay, well, what do I do to provide for my family? But we can get way down deep in that, and I'm sure we will tonight. But you wrap so much of your identity in what you do to earn a paycheck that I think there are a lot of other things in your life that get left in the dust.
Yeah. Okay. So let's branch on that then. Culture defining what a real man is supposed to be, what a real man is supposed to look like. Raph, you're the oldest one at the table, more seasoned. Describe for us a time or a situation where you felt like you weren't measuring up to that standard, because that standard has infiltrated the way we think. We're being conformed into this image of the world to think that the real man is this, and because of that, it's very easy for men to feel like we're not measuring up. So,
Yeah. I think I would just pile on to the whole thing. I'll try to get to that, but I was influenced a lot by my family, specifically by my father. Growing up, he's Latin descent, and I really feel like he ruled over the family with what he thought was right in his own mind, and I think we know that that's not a good way to rule a family, and that got sideways really quick a lot of times.
was he a believer?
I think later on in life he was. I think
Not during those 4 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
those early years, I think it was just very, very. I remember it being very domineering, from all perspectives, and then things changed, and as he grew older, as we grew older with him, he moved to Destin, and he was worshiping in a church with us, and came to know the Lord, and softened up a lot later on in life, and started to realize that it was no longer that he was king of the family, but he's starting to realize who was the true king, which is King Jesus. Getting a little bit probably ahead of ourselves here with some answers but I think for me, especially early on, married and trying to be a biblical man and trying to show a good example. I wanted to show up for work. I wanted to make sure I was showing up, making sure I was taking care of my responsibilities as a dad, but not only as a dad, but also as a husband. And I think sometimes because of the pressures of the culture that you have to be a certain type of person as a physician. And I felt like, maybe I had to uphold that view in society, right? And that's not, spent a lot of times early in my life thinking about what other people thought.
Keeping up appearances.
As a
been a fair
physician,
amount of time
right?
doing that.
And I think as men, we tend to do that. Of course,
What
yeah.
does it look like to keep up appearances practically? What do those areas look like? And anybody can speak to it. But,
Yeah. First of all, it becomes very overwhelming. It's not sustainable, for lack of a better word, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to keep up and do this and do that, and for your society. And
so what are
and
those
then-
areas that we try to keep ourselves at that measuring line? So I mean, so for example,
Yeah.
size of our house.
Yeah, all those.
Is that
things.
one of those things,
Yeah.
or what else?
Sure.
What else do men find struggling with in terms of trying to prove ourselves or measure up to this faux idea of what
Maybe
true
this,
masculinity
maybe
is?
this beautiful, perfect wife, big house,
The vehicle you drive.
the vehicle
Okay.
you drive,
Yeah.
the two kids, and then as your kids get older, they're the starter on the pitching on the team, and they have to. Anyway, you guys kind of get that picture
you just
of
chase
that
it.
pressure, and
And
we're
it just keeps
and
moving.
we're just chasing it. Yeah, we're just and I think again, as I'm just thinking about it, dude, it's just not sustainable. It is just not sustainable. You cannot continue in that way.
So it
There's no
sounds
way.
like at the root of it, the issue then is not just pride, but really a self-centeredness. So in that vein, like for you, for instance, James, and how do you guys find yourselves trying to measure up to that that standard?
I very much seek after independence. The more things you can do on your own and the less you have to rely on people around you, then the more stable you are. And the more you can rely on yourself, then it reflects that you kind of have it together because you're not really asking for help. You're not breaking down to other people. But it's not really the way to go. You can't do it all yourself.
Yeah. So what was modeled for you guys? Let's start with you guys. What was modeled for you in terms of this is masculinity? This is what it means to be a man and a leader. And I want your opinion on, because you grew up in church. You kind of grew up in church, not really so much though.
Half and half.
So I'm interested in both your answers, and then getting into you guys. This is supposed to be a man. So where do you see the crossover from the culture's definition of manhood into the church? Where do you see that seeping in? Where do you see those issues at your age? And then I'm going to ask you guys to build upon that because you have a little bit more experience, especially you having grown up in church your whole life. Where do you see the culture and the church kind of crossing paths in a very unbiblical way as it relates to manhood and this crisis? Because really the issue is, where are the men?
Yeah.
Where are the men today? And that's really at the heart of this issue. So give me that, and then we'll get to you guys, your opinion on that. Where are you finding that crossover between culture and church?
Growing up, I always, in the church part of growing up, I always looked up to heroes like Samson or David and big warriors that stepped up and fought the enemy. And then you have society, which you got Rambo and Rocky, and they kind of mix together to where a man stands up and he takes care of business.
Interesting. So the idea of a man is supposed to be strong, a man is supposed to step up and be victorious. Interesting. What about you?
I mean, with me, what was modeled growing up, my dad, self-employed, every single dollar that we had was something that he worked and earned. I mean, that's just the way it was. We didn't eat if he didn't work. Okay. So that was something that was modeled to me from day one. A little bit different with me now having a government job where you can not show up to work and still get a paycheck. But
It's a whole different podcast.
that's
It's a whole different...
a different thing. But
Might be
I mean,
talk-
growing up, I loved the superhero stories, superhero comics, all that sort of stuff.
You mean like Superman and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, like, the first Avengers movie, when it came out, that was, like, my jam. That was my favorite movie of all time. Okay? And one of my favorite superheroes was Iron Man.
So why is that? What's behind all of that?
Me, personally, I thought Iron Man was cool because it's like, okay, this guy's a genius. He's a billionaire. I mean, self-made person. I mean, he's got a suit of iron that he flies around in and can destroy a tank and blink while doing it. Like, that's incredible. And there's this quote from the first Avengers movie that, to me, really kind of shapes what I think our culture thinks of whenever they think masculinity. You've got the first Avengers movie. Tony and Steve Rogers are in there arguing, and Steve says, "You're nothing without that suit. Take it off, and what are you?" And Tony just looks at him and says, "I'm a genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist." It's like,
Interesting. Yeah.
what in that is
That's
godly?
his identity.
That's
Yes.
right. Culture identity.
Money,
Yes.
sexual conquest,
Uh-huh.
and
And
physical
intellect.
aptitudes that, yeah.
Intellect, like all of that is what he found his identity in. And whenever I was younger, I was like, oh my gosh, that's cool. Now that I'm a lot older, I look at that and I'm like, what is Christ honoring in anything that he just said? Like, sure, this is still a cool story, but I can also watch it and realize this is ungodly.
Before you get there, though, what part of that do you find in the church?
People want to be independent.
Okay, so I mean, we find that in the church, in this teaching of independence, and here's 7 steps to your best life type thing. Okay,
I mean, I certainly hope that men in the church don't want to be playboys, but we'll see.
well, I mean, not necessarily playboys, but you do have a lot of mega pastors preaching on sexuality in a way that
Is not honoring to God.
it expands outside of biblical. It gets in a way that it's more derogatory. Is the best way to define it.
Really
more
demeaning.
enticing.
Really demeaning.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yes.
It's almost at the end of the day, it becomes, I think, demeaning to women when you really look at it deeply. But on the front side, like any sin, on the front side it looks good.
Yeah.
But on the back side, we're looking at it and it's like, man, that's really demeaning to the females in the church and the things that and the respect that we're not giving to them. I find that one of the things that I think society is really struggling with men is we don't even know what men look like anymore.
No.
We don't know what a man looks like, not only emotionally, but maybe even more like even physically. Like, what does a man look like? Like, how did God, the Creator, create Adam, and what did he look like in the garden? What did that look like? And I think that's what culture is struggling with right now. We don't even know, as a culture, what a man should look like physically and emotionally and as a leader. And I think that is even in this time is bleeding into the church.
Would you say that that's done on purpose, though? I think I
Yeah.
totally agree with you, but I
Absolutely.
think that might be purposeful by the enemy because we have men that are just confused, and because they're confused,
That's-
they're checked out,
Right.
and they're isolating, and they're becoming apathetic because there's 2 messages being promoted by the society today. It's either passivity is masculinity, or you can't be strong, you can't be unkind, or it's strength, domineering, aggression. You got to go out and conquer the day. You're the king of your castle. That sort of thing. Get out there and do it type thing. And it's these, and we find men in the middle saying, "What is a man?
What is a man?"
I don't understand." And as you're saying, that is seeping into the church. Both of those messages are seeping into the church today.
And neither one of them is truly correct. I mean, there's aspects of both that are true.
But that's what
Partially.
makes it so attractive, right?
Yes.
So it's the counterfeit. A counterfeit has always got elements
It makes
of
it look
truth.
like it's real, but it's not. That's right.
I mean, you look at the life of Jesus. Jesus was strong. Like, the man carried a cross down through Jerusalem and didn't complain. There's strength in that.
Yeah, I mean, when we get into the part 2, we'll talk about strength coupled with submission, strength coupled with surrender, strength coupled with service. What does it really mean to look like a servant leadership? But before we get there, how else do we see the culture creeping into the church and the church accepting it? Because it is attractive. That is attractive. What do you got for us? I see you over there turning.
I'm turning.
Feverishly.
I'm looking, right?
It's like a Bible podcast.
So 2 Corinthians 4:4, right? So in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds. Who is the God of this world?
Satan.
Correct. Right? So the God of this world. So that means that necessarily the systems and processes of the world that we see around us are a product of his work. Right? So how much of this are we going to participate in, partake of, right? And what you focus on, right, you become. You're going to be a slave to something, right? The Bible tells us that, a literal slave. You're going to be a slave to Satan and his systems, or either to God through Jesus, right? And so as we look at this, it's extremely difficult to withdraw from all systems, right? That would probably be a psychosis in itself. And yet there's a way to navigate through this biblically. And so I guess what I'm trying to tease out is how much is too much of what we take in this world, right? So how much do we work outside the house? What does our family structure look like? How much of this worldly good do we need, right? There's a reason why it says to store up your treasures in heaven, not here on earth.
How much money do we actually need to bring home, right?
Yeah,
like what's the limit? Like should we just continue to make those lines up here where we just keep going for those financial figures?
Do you need $5 million in retirement?
And we don't need, at the end of the day, we need Jesus.
Because in pursuit of that, now you can start to figure out most all of the problems that we see, right? So the government comes in and says, well, I'm a much better father than you are, so I'm going to take care, right? So I'm going to build a system. It'll have healthcare. It'll have everything all plugged in. And now when things get tough, the man gets frustrated because he doesn't even know what his role is supposed to be. And so, now the family falls apart. The woman says, well, hey, I'd like the government anyway, right? Because there's all these social safety nets and I don't have to be in submission to a man who doesn't really appreciate me and mistreats me, right? So it starts with us as men, right? You want to change the world, you back it all the way down to changing a man. And so if as men we would look, I don't want to jump too far ahead because we want to, but
we're not doing solution yet.
But looking at, when you start to look at it through that lens, right? So work, what we spend our time doing, video games. I have men that are my age that play video games, and I want to say I'm not knocking it, but I am, because I hate it. At some point you have to grow up, and there are plenty of things to do around your house. Plenty of things to do around your house.
Honestly, if they're playing video games or they're scrolling, what's the difference?
So there you go. So anything that distracts your time from your family, right? And it's about dopamine. Can you derive your dopamine, your pleasure sense, from serving your family, from building in those four walls, right? What are we cultivating? Are we just going after a bigger house? Or are we going after what we can do inside those four walls? What's most important, the walls or what's within them?
So what is preventing the church from stepping in? Because I think the main issue is, as I kind of teased, is the church today at large does not have an answer for this crisis. And what we are pushing forward is a false view and a false definition of biblical Christianity. Ezekiel 22:30 says this. God says, so I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land. So there's corruption throughout the land from every stage. He defines it from the priests all the way down, from leadership, government, everything is corrupt. He says, I'm looking for a man, and this is the devastating statement, but I found no one. And a lot of times I find myself in my own prayer closet saying, Lord, is that the case in America? Is that the case in your church today? I'm looking for a man, but I haven't found one. So let's kind of tease that. Where are we seeing that in the church? Where are we seeing the failure? Where are we seeing men hiding? Where are we seeing men isolating and turning from responsibility? And maybe even ourselves. Where are you tempted to hide? So instead of like out there, everybody else, what about us? Like, where are we tempted to hide? Let's go around and just talk about that. Do you find yourself fighting this fleshly urge to shirk responsibility? And in what way?
the system is definitely set up to where you're supposed to submit to the government and allow the government to solve the problems for you. You're not supposed to stand up for yourself. You're not supposed to solve your own problems. If somebody is, say, stealing something from your house, you are not supposed to go out there and confront this person. You're supposed to sit back and call the police and let them come handle it. You're not allowed to take responsibility. They penalize you for it. I think a lot of the problem with men is when you stand up, you're standing up like the whack-a-mole, and then you get hit with that hammer, and the world tries to hit you back down.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, not even to that extreme, but we were just on the way over here talking about even cars today. They've made it to where you can't even work on your own car, and you know this.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even do your own mechanical work like you could do 20, 30 years
They
ago.
have proprietary tools that
Yeah.
you are not allowed to buy.
So again, they're saying, man, you have to be reliant upon the system. Interesting. Any other thoughts about God searching for a man, and where's the church in this?
I'll just go ahead and go for the throat on this one.
Why are you looking at me like that? Like,
Female pastors.
female pastors.
Why on earth do... And I'm not saying this in a sexist way at all, but the way the family is structured and the way God ordered the family, God created Adam first. Then he created Eve and gave Adam the responsibility of shepherding, loving his wife, and leading his family. So why on earth do we think that it is okay for a woman to take on the responsibility of leading a church? And if you do think it's okay, where are the men to step up and lead that church?
So they're shirking their responsibility because it's hard. It's hard to lead.
One of the only half decent arguments, I guess you could say, for having a female pastor that I have heard from anybody is, well, what if there isn't a man that's willing to stand up and lead the church? And I
That's
looked
the
at them and
exception
said,
to the rule.
they need to close their doors.
Yeah.
If there's no man willing to stand up and lead the church, they need to close their doors and go find somewhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's one of the things. Now we're getting off on a tangent, but whatever. That's what we do here. As a leader in the church, it always baffles me that we would have. And I'm all for more churches, but I'm for healthy churches.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have 20 churches in a small town and 15 of them are struggling, why are we not just coming together? What prevents that?
Yeah.
Male leadership, or is it my kingdom? Well, it's my. Again, it goes back to the issue of pride and self-sufficiency, and, a wrong view of what masculinity is.
Can I jump in for a second? Because you asked earlier, what are some of the things you personally are hiding behind?
Yeah,
And
where do you
how-
find yourself
where
kind
you
of
kind of
backing
pushing
off
off,
of
yeah.
responsibility?
Yeah, I find myself that just at times, in all honesty, and I think if we're honest as men, we're hiding behind fear.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I find myself hiding behind fear at times.
It's true.
And that might be a little big word, that kind of covers a lot, but
We'll dive down into it.
yeah.
What are men afraid
Yeah,
of?
that's
Because I agree with that.
yeah, because I
think
think
men are afraid. What are we
I
afraid
agree,
of?
and that's what I was I think one of the things we're afraid of is failure, and we're in fear that we're going to fail, and that we're going to look again. We talked about this on how we look to society as we're trying to live that life as a biblical man, and we fail maybe at something small, but then society points to it as something huge, big drama, see, I told you that,
Hypocrite.
Raph was
Got a hypocrite over
Raph's a
here.
hypocrite, so I think in real life, I think #RL kind of stuff. We're scared. We're scared of men, and I think the reason is because we think that we're the king. We think that we're the ones that are in control. And this is going to get to the second podcast a little bit more. What's the answer?
But that is one of the answers of how the
Yes.
culture's coming into the church, because there
Absolutely.
are pastors standing up saying, men,
Men.
be stronger,
Yeah.
be in control, take your responsibility back, take your authority back.
Take your authority back.
But what does that look like?
Yeah.
It becomes
Can I-
a cultural,
Yeah.
a cultural Christian.
And so I think what it looks like, we have to go to the Word. How did Jesus show power? we're getting ahead of ourselves. But how did Jesus show power? He served. He served us. He turns the world upside down, right? He shows power in death. How do we show power in death? Because he shows it in resurrection, right? Mm-hmm. And so he was not.
Let me ask you this then, before we get into that solution. You said
How do we
fear of failure.
Yeah, fear.
How do you define failure? What is the standard by which you have not met that would make you fail? So what I mean is, fear of failure, you were kind of approaching it from I sinned, and the world is saying you're a hypocrite. But I find more men, even in the church, are not afraid of that. They're afraid of, I failed at work and I got fired. Or I failed and my wife and my kids look at me differently. Like, how are we defining failure? Again, that comes in with the cultural definition of manhood and masculinity, to whereby we're measuring ourselves with that. And so we are failures if we don't exceed that bar of strength, of playboy, philanthropy, sexual conquest, biggest truck, biggest car, biggest gun rack. Like, how are we defining failure then? Because I agree with you. I think men are afraid. I think fear of failure is a serious thing. And there's people watching. That's me. I'm afraid to fail. So I'll either won't step out and try, or I'll just become apathetic and don't care, or I'll just try even harder and I'll just do it again and again in my own strength. All of them are wrong.
I think, especially early on in my life, that was me. I would get up early. I could put on my best set of clothes and look the best, and I would get to work cleaned up, and I was looking the part, but at the end of the day, what's important? Is it how other people see you, or how does Christ see you? I mean, and then again, where are we scared to fail?
But wouldn't you say most men live before an audience of man versus an audience of God?
Right. Yeah. No.
So let's just ask ourselves, even today,
no doubt.
Who are we most cognizant of in our interactions today or this week at work? Other people's opinions, other coworkers, family, kids.
Something that keeps coming to mind is when Paul's talking about being married and a man not seeking first to please God, but seeking first to please his wife. And it's kind of, you're seeking to happy wife, happy life. But that can lead you down the bad road, because just because your wife is happy doesn't mean you're doing the right thing for her. Your decision to please her in the moment may cause her more pain in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Have we not all? I mean, I've said it, happy wife, happy life, but it is not biblical.
No, it's not.
I mean, but it is like how we kind of think sometimes, and that's a way of subtly hiding from responsibility and saying, well, there's an issue, but if my wife is okay, I'm not going to press into that and fix that.
Yeah.
There's a lure there, isn't there?
Yeah, this is something that I have failed at miserably for a while. In an endeavor to create happiness in your wife, not joy, happiness, right? Momentary happiness. Women are very emotional creatures. And if we do not lead well, now they're left with a chasm, right? This vacuum whereby they're making decisions that they don't want to make. My wife will tell, I don't want to make this decision, right?
But I will make it if you don't.
I will. I feel like I'm having to, and you're not leading, right? And so, that finally connected with me recently. And it's really been on me to biblical manhood. What does that look like?
So when you say a lot of marriages struggle with that, then that resentment builds because the man's not leading.
Yeah.
Like you said, that he's playing video games in the basement, or he's out watching sports, or he's just drinking, sitting on the couch, or
because where is his incentive? Yeah. Okay, let's get on something really serious here. Women, are you long suffering for your husband to bring him into the place that he needs to be? Are you willing to walk beside him through this to help get him there gently and patiently? Because he's not getting it anywhere in society. He's probably not getting in his church as well. So he's just fumbling around in the darkness trying to figure this out, staying by sheer force. When if you as a wife would come alongside and say, hey, let's communicate well, and let's figure this out together. Here's what you're not doing. Here's what you need to do. We do not communicate as couples. We assume we know what each other are talking about. I know my wife has a very blunt personality, right? I'm a very emotional person. So that's a recipe for a disaster in most days. Until you understand it, right? and then you seek, right, to understand each other, right, to communicate, because you're both for each other. You're one. We're one, and you have to work incredibly hard at that part. And once you start to get that, I think your relationship really starts to blossom. And sometimes that takes 20 years.
You said that little 4-letter word that most men turn from, fear of failure.
Yeah.
And that's
So-
work.
Yeah.
They don't want to work.
No.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that because we may fail. And that would require more work,
Or the
more
incentives,
vulnerability.
the incentives in the other direction are too great. I can play video games. I can have sports. I can just go drinking with my buddies. I can all these other things that are so much easier to do that please the flesh, right? This is discipline to the flesh. To become one with your spouse and to create that relationship that God intended for you, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. And we have a right now instant gratification society that, as I was listening to y'all earlier, we talk as if we could fall further. I think we might be at the bottom. I feel like because you look at Grady's generation, right? You look at Grady's
I look at
generation.
our kids' generation,
But
teenagers.
What's very interesting, I see so much hope in this because you're willing to call a spade. And there's a lot of guys in their 20s right now that are saying, hey, I got a family. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but this sounds foolish and I'm not going for it. And they are so hungry for truth. And so as men who, I'm a little further down the road, right? Not quite as far as you, a little further than you. There's some things that I know, some things that I've done wrong, some things that I've done right. We need to impart that, but then society will say we're self-righteous, right? So now we were just talking about this the other day, and so you have Christ's righteousness, right? So you take on his righteousness, he imparts that to you, but then also in that same body you have self-righteousness. So those both have to live together, and that's a hard thing because you always want to say, well, we've done it here tonight. I'm going to say this, but I probably shouldn't, right? Just say it. Say the thing. If it's true, it's true.
Can I pile on to the whole fear thing? As I just hear it, I'm thinking back even in my own life. I think there's been many a times of that fear of just feeling like I was incapable, like I'm not able, like I'm just fear that I just can't do that. I just can't do that. And I think that becomes very important as we walk this Christian life. You're absolutely right. You need to speak the gospel to me and go, Raphael, you're right. You can't do this. You can only do this through Christ.
That's right.
And only through Christ can you do this. Only through Christ can you lead your family.
Yeah.
Only through. So then that fear of not being capable really, really hits home, and you start going, you know what? You're right. I am not capable of doing this. I cannot lead a Sunday school class without Christ. I can't lead my family without Christ. I can't lead my kids to a better way. I'm not talking a better education, to be a better doctor, to be a better physician, to be better, but to teach them a better way of showing them that, yes, you're absolutely right. You are incapable. But through Christ, he makes it right for us. That's a hard thing until we get to that point in life where we see that. But I feel like I've been there many years in the past of going, I can't do this. Why am I'm scared. I don't want to do this. And we just, like you were saying, we just kind of back off. And we sit in those back rows and we become what? Fringe Christians, right? We become these fringe Christians on the back row. We're showing up, but we might as well not show up, right?
I mean, our bodies are there.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing.
Right. We become very emotionally detached. We're just not there, like you're saying. We're not there. I don't know. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I think you touched on something that we need to talk about a little bit, and that's that coming to the man in the mirror and really having that honest. God opens your eyes and says, "You're not capable of doing anything," and that really does shatter a man to his core.
That's right.
And it's what the problem we have today with society and what's happened to the church is when a man comes shattered, what are we giving them? What does the church have to offer? Because we're not giving them Jesus, the right Jesus. We're giving them a cultural, watered-down version of Jesus that is not repairing men after his image.
Hippie Jesus.
It could be a hippie Jesus. It could be an ultra masculine Jesus. It can be, I mean, there's two main ways, and we'll get into that in just a moment.
Yeah.
But that coming to yourself and being, I'm not able to do this. So let's talk on that for just a moment, just briefly before we get into that. Tell me, have you been there? Have you had that man in the mirror moment? If so, what was it about? What brought you that man in the mirror moment? That really just kind of brought you to your knees and said, "Man, I've been doing this all wrong, and I can't do this." And that's hard to admit as a man. Like, I can't do this.
Absolutely.
One example in my own life, we had a stillborn child, and that was very rough for both me and my wife. And I remember sitting in the hospital parking lot and having a moment, and it kind of brought me to the point where I looked up and I asked the Lord. I was like, I can't do this. This is not something that I can handle. I can't comfort her. I can barely comfort myself. That's it. You have to turn to the Lord in those kind of rough moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else that coming to man in the mirror moment? I'm not capable.
I mean, going to work, going home every single day, trying to do everything you can to fix every single little problem, and nothing's getting better.
Yeah. That starts to wear on you.
Absolutely nothing's getting better, and it's like every single time you think, "Oh, I finally fixed this," that problem comes back and it's 3 times worse.
Yeah.
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 How about you two?
I mean, I I'm a little older than you guys. I have a history of failures and stuff like this where, I've had a recent failure, just even, with my own family, my, a brother and my mother. And I just, I've just, Jeremy knows this. I've poured my heart out to him and Art, and he knows, just the heartfelt moments of just where you just look in the mirror and you've done things wrong, you've done things right, you love your family, but at the end of the day, you just can't make it right without Christ. God's going to have to step in and make this right. Not only situational, but also relationship wise. God's, and you just have that moment, like you said, have that moment in the mirror where you're just like, dear Lord, maybe all the things that they are calling me and they are saying about me are not only true, but they're 10 times worse than what they're saying. And I just need you. I just need you to help this situation. I can't do it anymore. And that's the other side of the story too. As a man, right, and as a leader in your family, you're used to taking care of all the problems, right?
Yeah.
As the problems come up, you take care of them. You do it. And listen, I could take care of this problem too. But at the end of the day, I think that's something that God is trying to teach me, and still to this day, to teach me to, hey, surrender. Surrender to me. I've got this. And I'm going to make this a lot better than you could have ever made this. But that is a point that I've come to, and like you said, that conversation in the mirror where it's humbling, it's hard. It's listen, in the world, if the world would have seen me as I'm doing this in the mirror, they would say I'm not a very strong man because I'm crying, I'm emotionally, into this. And just crying out to God, I can't do this. You know I can do this, and this, and it'd be right. But dear Lord, I know that I just need to surrender this to you. And that's been a big man in the mirror kind of moment for me.
Yeah, I think men more than anybody have a way of putting a confident face while on the inside just being terrified. Just like scared little children. Like, man, like you said, if they knew what they've been saying, like if they only knew,
right.
They only know half of it.
Right.
You don't even know. You just scratch at the surface.
That's right.
Of how bad it is. Yeah. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, you all know that we lost a child a few months ago, our 18-month-old in a terrible accident. And, the day after waking up, that you are completely empty. There's nothing left. There's nothing left of who you are. And you have a decision to make. right? And in that, God has worked. He's worked such an awesome thing in our lives, in our family's life. Submit and allow sanctification. I like to, sometimes when my mind wanders, I think, okay, Lord, is this how strong-headed I am that it takes something like this to get my attention? You got it. You've got my attention. You have my full attention. I am at the end of myself. What do I do? What do I do? And day by day, I will tell you, I don't miss a day. That's why I have this right here open. Not missed one day, because the world is going to, it's going to mess you up, right? Like every day, it's like the sun, right? That radiation, it just degrades everything. The world just degrades. And so your defense against that is his word. This is how he talks to you, right? You have to be in his word. And so, in that, I also have to be a leader for my family. They're not the ones that are supposed to be the rock, right? I have to do that. That's my role, my job in our family. So when everyone else is broken, I have to be there and ready and willing to go to work and roll my sleeves up and say, okay, what do we need to do to get this done? So when my son has a breakdown, okay, what do we need to do? Let's sit down, let's talk about it. Let's flesh this out. What are you feeling when my wife has a breakdown, right? And so where does mine come from? And my flesh would sometimes get a little like, what? From this.
When's my turn?
From you. This is my father. That's where I get it.
Yeah.
And it's all sufficient.
Yeah. So all men no man is going to get through this life without being wounded. And so wounded men are vulnerable. And so what we find with this crisis is there's two very different reactions that have been pushed forth, both in the culture and in the church. The first one is this idea of passivity. The message of being, don't be too assertive, don't make anybody uncomfortable, kind of go along to get along, let somebody else handle it. Let's just be nice. Knowing sometimes love requires confrontation. Leadership requires making difficult choices. It requires a man to stand when everyone's sitting. Where have we seen passivity masquerading as godliness? In our homes, in our churches, even maybe in ourselves. And then we'll get to the second kind of deadly truth coming in.
I'd say it's in the modern day American church by and large. They do not preach the gospel at all.
Preaching the gospel.
They do not preach the gospel. You've got one of the fastest growing movements, which is the prosperity gospel. Then you've got Mormonism that's going around that's just like, oh, well, if you work hard enough, the Lord will accept you. Maybe. We'll see. But the prosperity gospel's like, oh, well, just pray harder, have more faith, and God's going to bless you with every single thing that you ever wanted, all without telling these people that they are dead in sin and they need Christ to make them alive.
Okay.
It's where else do we see repentance? Like in his 20s, he gets that perfectly, perfect. He understands that. That's just amazing.
It's not me, it's the Lord.
But it's I think it's also a yearning for truth, right? In these generational cycles, right? This podcast, like the generations, there's something different about each one of them. And now we see this youngest one, there's a hunger for God. Are we going to step up and are we going to help them feast? Right?
I don't know. Are we?
I am. I promise you. And you said wounded men earlier. Romans 8:17. If we be children, we are also heirs, even to the heirs of God, and heirs annexed with Christ, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified with him. Wounded,
Praise God.
I'd like to change that for suffering. We all suffer. We lost a child. You lost a child, right? You have a marriage that's, it's hard, right? It's hard. You're divorced. You don't have that unity in your life. You don't have that one that, that's what the kids call it, ride or die, right? So
I think that's our generation. I don't think that's their generation.
I don't know. I didn't get it. I was the spirit of the millennials. But what I'm getting at is that we're all going to suffer. We need to learn how to suffer well, whether that's daily suffering and being in traffic, or if it's losing a child. You have to learn how to suffer well, because it is not for this world. It is for the life that is after, right? We're working to get. We need our relationship restored. I want to see us dwell again with our God.
Okay. So suffering, the answer is not passivity. But there's also another ditch, and that's the ditch of aggression.
Yeah.
This one's interesting because it sounds more masculine, and I think it appeals to a lot more people. And it's the take charge, nobody tells you what to do, stop apologizing for being a man, and just step into that role. Strength is not something to apologize for. So where are we finding that come into this counterfeit movement of aggression, aggressive masculinity?
Well, just like the passivity has a ditch where you step back and you don't want to have any control over anything, the opposite of that is you try to control everything and you lean on just yourself and your own pride, and you eventually will make your own mistakes that way. If you don't submit to God in that, you're relying on your fallible nature and you will fail every time.
And why is it my way? Like, to that man who is that person, why does it have to be your way? What makes that right? Have you checked that with the Bible, right? If you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, I can't talk to you. But if you're a Christian, have you checked it in the Bible? Is my line of thinking aligning with the Bible, with God's word? If it's not, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
True, but how often and how easy is it for us to not do that? Because, I mean, the Israelites in the Old Testament are a perfect picture. They're an example for us here in the church age. How easy was it for them? Everything God was doing, so often they just fall back into sin and oppression. I mean, look at the judges. God delivers them. Praise God. And then all of a sudden, let's sin, oppression, bring you to your knees, cry out, God delivers them again. And it's just cycle over cycle over cycle. And yet we do the same thing. Mm-hmm. We enter those cycles.
Yeah, you might have misheard me. That's me every day talking to myself, right? I'm like, what I think today is that, does that align with the word, right? Does that align with what I should be doing as the head of the household?
And better yet, you look at whenever Jesus actually stood in front of the religious leaders. These religious leaders, they thought that they were following the law to the T. But God stood there to their face and called them hypocrites, and they crucified him for it because it didn't align with what they thought God was. Rather than all they'd have to do is just open the Torah scrolls and read for half a second and figure out, oh wait, that man's who I'm reading about right here.
But they can't in their own, what's the word? In their, like in that stubbornness that's within man, right?
In their own pride.
I cannot be wrong. If I show that I'm wrong, if I'm open, right? If I'm malleable versus a rock, right? You just can't. So many men, they can't just open up to another possibility. Like, what if I am wrong? I know I don't feel wrong. It doesn't feel wrong to me, but what if I am? Can you think outside of yourself like that to see, like, hey, I need to see someone else's perspective? And you know, I've been in business my whole life, so I have to think this way in order to feed my family. So I have to think, and I guess maybe that's kind of helped me a little bit in life, because I have to think, okay, I'm not at the very top, so there must be something else I can do. And so I think when you look at it that way, like, what else can I be doing? Working on yourself instead of what can everybody around me be doing for me? What can I be doing for them?
I think that line of thinking of being open-minded is good in all aspects of everything except for the core doctrines of salvation. Mm-hmm. We cannot cave or compromise on the fact that Jesus is God. Jesus came, lived, died, rose again, and that anyone who calls on the name of Jesus will be saved.
Yeah. I'm thinking more like washing dishes. Who washes dishes?
Yeah.
That. Yeah.
But
core doctrine, we need to make sure we keep intact.
You look at that and you see you have these people who throughout time, you know, it's not an instant thing, change in core doctrines and stuff like that. This is not like you go from believing that Jesus is the Messiah to you're a heretic in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's something that takes time.
Yeah.
You look at the Catholic Church, they started out really good. The early church, 300s, all that sort of stuff started out really good. Nowadays, they're apostates and worship Satan. So, I mean...
Yeah, drifting is very easy to do.
It's because they started thinking, well, what if I'm wrong? And they started caving on other things.
Yeah, instead of keeping the core doctrine, right, and making from first principles, making all of your decisions based on this. And might I say, if you don't read it, how do you even know what you're doing? You have to read this, and you have to comprehend it. Like, you have to have a hunger for this. If you're not reading this with the intent to understand it, I've done it. I'm just saying, I've done it. It's a lot harder.
We all have.
I saw a statistic the other day that said that I want to say only 23% of evangelical Christians actually read their Bible.
It's not even that high.
23%.
Yeah.
And I thought that sounded kind of high.
Yeah.
Maybe they're including the 23% in the people who scroll on Facebook and see a Bible verse and read it. I mean, that might count into that, but
Yeah, I mean, the most Bible a lot of people get is the 30 minutes they attend a service on Sunday morning.
yeah.
You know, I found this interesting. So the verse, I'll just paraphrase. I know my Redeemer lives. Right. That's I can think of a song like there's a Christian song and she sings it. She has a sweet voice. That's in the middle of Job.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want the context of that, right?
Right. Like
Oh, that's
you
suffering.
just put that on a bumper sticker, right? Like I know my Redeemer lives. That's wonderful.
As you're driving your BMW down to your
Yeah.
$1 million mansion.
That who said that?
Gospel
Job said
truth
it,
without
right?
suffering.
Yeah. So it's like we twist the Bible into we twist it. I'll just
do.
stop there.
We do. So, I mean, we're shaped by false ideas of masculinity. We have passivity to aggression. So we know that we've had these false things seep into the culture. What have you found that you've had to unlearn as you're growing in Christ? What are those things you have to unlearn?
One of the things I had to unlearn is the reliance on independence, and like I had the totally wrong read on David and Goliath, and I didn't quite understand that Goliath was the pinnacle of independence. He was the biggest, the strongest. He was going out in front of everybody alone, and David was just a little shepherd boy, and he undid him, not through his own strength, not any power or skill that he had himself, but by relying on God. It wasn't David's skill with a sling that took Goliath down. It was faith that God would protect him.
Interesting. So you had to unlearn that archetype of who Goliath was because you were actually mirroring yourself off of that
Without realizing it.
without realizing it. Man, that's interesting. I like that. Anybody else? What have you had to unlearn as it relates to culture's definition of biblical masculinity?
You know, I think just a selfishness in my life, like, you know, I do this for my family, so therefore they must do this for me. It was a this for that. You can't live that way if you're always keeping score, because it's never 50-50. Marriage is never 50-50. Sometimes it's 90-10, and sometimes it's that way for 2 years. It just is what it is. When you took those vows, you better make sure you mean it. So, yeah, just throwing away the idea that I need to be served. Makes no sense.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit kind of how I was thinking about some things I've had to unlearn. You know, we've talked about it earlier, how my father had a big influence on me and how I looked at manhood. And then, of course, I saw different perspectives of what we would call biblical manhood. But, you know, my dad, again, early on, very domineering. And I think I found myself in a lot of those situations early on in my marriage, thinking that, you know, because I am the lead of the household, per se, that I need to lead in this certain way that my dad also showed me to lead, which was, as I know now, was not the proper way. And of course, what I've learned is the less I can be domineering, obviously, the better. But the more I can serve her, the better we can lead together.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to lead by myself. We're not doing this road, you know, where I'm out here and she's going here and then we're coming here and then we're going to come meet back in the middle. No. We're you know, I'm trying to serve her like Christ served the church, right? And as we're doing this, she's trying to show love and respect by being there and just working together. So we're working together going through this life. And I found that just, again, if I had to just say that one word of just, I'm able to see more leadership as I serve her more instead of trying to be domineering over her.
Raph, if I might ask you, like, think back to when you were leading the way that you knew wasn't right?
Yeah.
What was your relationship like with your wife? What was she like on a regular basis versus now?
Yeah.
What is she like?
Absolutely. I think the easiest word was just, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
It was a struggle, man. It was a struggle every day. every day. And we've been doing this for a while, and we're committed to each other. But more importantly, and I honestly believe this, we're committed to the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think we have to show that commitment to the Lord. You and I and Art have talked about this on Friday mornings, where it's this triangle, right? You have the triangle, and it's you on one side, your wife on the other side, and who's at the top of the triangle. I love that triangle appearance because it's Christ at the point, and through all the issues of life, he's busting through. I think about it like the boats bust through these ice packs, right? Like, and they just had that big point on the front side, and that's how we're going through life now. We're just trusting in God, and it's not so much that I have to get my way or that she has to get her way, but together we're complementing each other. And I think as Christ leads us, he's leading us, and he's breaking up all those problems, all these situations. And now it's not she's trying to come through it from one perspective and I'm trying to come from another perspective, but now we're moving together with Christ, and Christ is just doing some amazing things and making it a lot more, for lack of a word, it's just beautiful when you just see what Christ can do in a marriage, and when you're moving together. So I think for us, it has just, and for me, it's just been more of trying to develop this servanthood type of outlook of every day when I wake up. How can I serve my wife? How can I serve my kids? How can I serve my techs, my manager at the office? How can I serve those guys? I'm no longer going into the office saying, well, how are you going to serve me? Because that's what they do. They take care of me. They do what what we need to do. And now, so again, I think God gives us that perspective of how we should be leading with our wives together, with him at the front side. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. I probably went a little bit too long with that. So sorry.
Grady, what are you having to unlearn?
I would say probably having to unlearn just the mindset of I have to fix everything.
Oh, yeah.
And like when I make a decision, this is what we're doing. I don't care what anyone else thinks about it, but when I make a decision, this is what we're doing. And it's having to learn that I'm not right at all, and that I need to lean more on the Lord for guidance and for what it is that he wants me to do rather than what I want to do. Because I've spent a lot of years doing what I wanted to do.
That's right.
And it didn't work.
Interesting. So what I'm gathering from your examples is that maybe biblical masculinity isn't so much about how much power I can exercise over someone, but how much power I'm willing to surrender to serve others.
Absolutely.
And so given those things, the things we've discussed this evening, the answers we've brought up kind of in little spurts is that Jesus is the model. And that what we're going to attack in the next part is Jesus is the model, but what does that actually look like practically? What does that look like on Monday morning? Because if we're going to tell men don't be passive, and we're going to tell men don't be aggressive, then men are going to say, well, what am I supposed to be? What does that actually look like? And that's what we're going to tackle on the next episode. That will wrap up this episode. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining us. See you on the next one.